Ladies and gentlemen, what if the very hands that hold yours in comfort are the same hands slowly draining your strength, expectations? What if the smiles around you carry shadows behind their teeth? The most dangerous battles are not fought with enemies in the open, but with the demons that wear familiar faces. Not all harm comes in the form of shouting, conflict, or visible aggression. Often, the most damaging forms of harm come quietly, disguised as concern, love, or friendship. It's easy to guard yourself against those who clearly wish you harm, expectations, but it's far more difficult to recognize the slow erosion of your spirit by those who stand close and whisper. This kind of harm wears a mask. It enters your life gently, perhaps even helpfully, and over time begins to reshape your beliefs, your confidence, and your peace without you noticing the shift. There are people who appear supportive, but their support is conditional. They clap for you, but only when you stay beneath them. When you grow, evolve, or seek peace, they feel threatened, yet they never attack directly. Instead, they question your decisions subtly, disguise envy as advice, or guilt you into staying where they feel comfortable. It sounds like, "Expectations, I'm just worried about you," or, "Are you sure you can do this?" It sounds like care, but it carries the vibration of limitation. Expectations, their words aren't loud, but they're heavy. Slowly, you begin to doubt yourself, shrink yourself, and question your intuition, not because someone shouted at you, expectations, but because someone you trust planted seeds of doubt and wrapped them in soft words. The truth is, many people who cause harm aren't even aware they're doing it. Their own fears, insecurities, expectations, and unresolved emotions drive them to control others emotionally. They're not evil, they're unconscious. And that makes their influence even harder to detect. You don't expect harm from someone who says they love you. But love is not control. Love is not fear. Love does not hold back or limit. So when someone who claims to love you consistently sows confusion, lowers your energy, or uses guilt to keep you in place, you must have the inner clarity to see beyond their surface. Harm that comes softly is more dangerous because it teaches you to accept emotional pollution as normal. You adapt to walking on eggshells. You adjust your truth to avoid discomfort. You silence your dreams to keep peace with others. Over time, you lose parts of yourself. Not through violence or betrayal, but through small compromises and subtle conditioning. The worst part is expectations. You may even thank the people who harm you. You may believe they helped you become humble or realistic, when in fact they only made you smaller. To live in peace and truth, you must sharpen your inner vision. You must learn to read intention, not just tone. Expectations. You must trust the feeling you get in your gut, even when the words sound right. Your soul knows the difference between support and control. Expectations. Between love and dependency. Between growth and suppression. When you learn to see this clearly, expectations, you free yourself from the chains that never made noise, but always held you back. People often trust words because they sound clear, rational, and direct. But words can be rehearsed. They can lie, flatter, or confuse. Energy, on the other hand, never lies. Every human being radiates a certain frequency. And if you pay attention closely, you can feel what's beneath their words. Expectations. The way someone makes you feel in their presence often says far more than what they say with their mouth. To truly understand a person's intentions, expectations, you must stop relying only on what they say and begin observing the energy they bring into your space. When someone enters a room, their energy speaks before they do. You can feel it. It might feel heavy, rushed, anxious, or draining. Or it might feel calm, grounded, present, and peaceful. Expectations. This sensation is not imagined, it's real. Our nervous system picks up more than our ears can comprehend. Some people talk about love and peace but radiate insecurity and tension. Others may speak little, yet their presence calls your mind. Expectations. This is why some conversations leave you feeling tired, confused, or agitated, even though nothing hostile was said. The energy behind the words carried resistance, judgment, or manipulation. Energy is expressed through tone, facial expression, posture, and silence. Expectations. It's in the pauses between sentences, in the look someone gives you when you succeed, in the silence after you speak your truth. Expectations. You may hear words like, "I'm happy for you," but feel a coldness or discomfort behind the smile. You may hear, "I'm just giving advice," yet feel your confidence shrink every time they speak. This is the dissonance between word and energy. Learning to observe this dissonance is essential for protecting your peace and staying connected to your intuition. It takes stillness and presence to observe energy clearly. Expectations. If your mind is busy, if you're always reacting to words, you will miss the subtle signals that show someone's true alignment. Expectations. Energy reveals itself in stillness. When you quiet your thoughts and feel instead of overanalyzing, truth becomes obvious. Expectations. The people who drain you won't need to say anything harmful. They just leave you feeling smaller, weaker, or confused. Expectations. The ones who uplift you might not offer grand speeches, but after spending time with them, you feel lighter, stronger, more aligned with your true self. Observing energy also means observing your own. Notice how your energy shifts in certain environments or around certain individuals. Your body and spirit are always responding. Expectations. If someone's presence repeatedly brings tension, heaviness, or inner conflict, believe that signal. Don't excuse it just because their words sound kind, or their history with you is long. Time doesn't equal truth. Familiarity doesn't equal safety. And words don't always equal integrity. To live with wisdom, you must become fluent in the language of energy. Words are important, expectations, but they're only one piece of the truth. Energy is the current that runs beneath everything. And when you learn to observe it, expectations, you gain the power to see reality as it is, not as it's said to be. Awareness is the weapon against hidden intentions because it allows you to perceive what lies beneath the surface. In a world where words can be polished and actions rehearsed, awareness becomes your inner radar. It detects what is not being said, it feels what is being withheld, and it senses the subtle shift in tone, body language, or energy. Most people rely only on what they see or hear, but those who cultivate deep awareness begin to notice everything else. The pause before someone answers, the way they avoid eye contact, the contradiction between their words and their energy. These are clues that the conscious mind may miss, but the aware mind never ignores. Hidden intentions are not always malicious. Sometimes people are unaware of their own motives. They might pretend to support you, not realizing their subconscious wants to keep you dependent. They might offer help not to serve you, but to feel superior. When you lack awareness, you take these gestures at face value. You say yes when you should say no. You open up when you should stay guarded. But when you are aware, you no longer respond blindly. You begin to observe, not react. You notice patterns, not just moments. You understand that not everything said with a smile is rooted in kindness. Cultivating awareness doesn't require suspicion, it requires stillness. When you are quiet enough inside, you begin to feel the truth behind the noise. You don't need proof or confrontation to know when something is off. You can feel the misalignment. This awareness gives you choice. It gives you power. Instead of getting pulled into emotional games or being fooled by manipulation, you stay grounded. You can walk away without a fight. You can protect your peace without explaining yourself. Awareness is not loud. It's not about catching others in the act or exposing them. It's about knowing, and knowing changes everything. Most harm in relationships does not come from obvious betrayal, but from subtle erosion. A little control here, a little guilt there. Slowly, your boundaries dissolve, your clarity dims, and your energy gets tangled in confusion. Without awareness, you won't even notice it happening until you're emotionally exhausted. But with awareness, you catch the shift early. You feel when something doesn't nourish you. You sense when someone's presence drains instead of uplifts. This clarity becomes your shield. You no longer need to defend yourself because you're no longer letting harm enter unnoticed. Awareness is also the beginning of healing. When you are aware of your own patterns, your need for approval, your fear of confrontation, your tendency to avoid discomfort, you stop giving others the tools to control you. You take back your power by seeing yourself clearly. You begin to move through life with eyes open, spirit calm, and boundaries rooted. Awareness doesn't promise you a world free of deception, but it ensures you're not its victim. You don't chase truth. You live aligned with it. You can't heal others by letting them hurt you because true healing never comes from sacrifice that destroys your own well-being. Often, we believe that if we love deeply enough, endure quietly enough, or stay patient long enough, the brokenness in someone else will be fixed through our presence. This illusion is powerful especially in relationships where there's emotional attachment. Whether it's a family member struggling with inner conflict, a friend trapped in self-destruction, or a partner carrying unresolved trauma, many people step into the role of savior, believing their love can heal what only self-responsibility can touch. The problem begins when this love becomes self-neglect. You absorb their anger, excuse their manipulation, and tolerate emotional damage in the name of loyalty or compassion. Slowly, their wounds become your weight, their chaos becomes your silence. Their pain starts to control the rhythm of your life. You may not realize it at first because your intention feels pure. You want to help, to support, to not give up on them. But underneath that intention, your energy begins to bleed out. You compromise your boundaries, your peace, and your sense of worth, thinking that staying and suffering is proof of strength. It's not. Healing is an inward journey. No matter how much you give, cry, forgive, or stay, the other person must choose to confront their own darkness. If they don't, you are merely giving them comfort in their dysfunction, not motivation to change it. When someone sees they can continue to hurt you and still have access to your loyalty, they learn nothing about healing. They learn how to survive without accountability. This doesn't make them evil. It makes them human. But your role is not to be their emotional shield. Your role is to be whole, to stand in your own clarity, and to not confuse suffering with love. True love is not silent acceptance of harm. It is sometimes the courage to walk away. It's the power to say, I believe in your healing, but I will not be your cushion for chaos. When you protect your energy, you give the other person a choice. They can either rise and do the inner work, or remain as they are, without the benefit of your constant rescue. Sometimes, walking away is the most honest form of love. It says, I will no longer let you hurt me, in the process of not healing yourself. You cannot save someone who refuses to face themselves. And no matter how noble your effort is, you are not responsible for carrying a pain that is not yours to resolve. You were not born to be a sacrifice for someone else's avoidance. You were born to awaken, to grow, and to protect the sacredness of your soul. Their healing is their path. Your freedom is yours. Loving from a distance is still love, because sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do, for yourself and for others, is to create space. There are people in your life you care about deeply, but their presence begins to blur your peace, challenge your boundaries, and slowly drain your energy. It may be someone with unresolved pain, someone who chooses control over connection, or someone whose version of love carries manipulation, blame, or emotional instability. Loving them does not mean tolerating behavior that erodes your well-being. It means acknowledging the connection while choosing to protect yourself. Many people confuse love with proximity. They believe that if you care, you must stay close, stay available, stay involved. But love isn't about constant presence. It's about genuine intention. You can still wish someone well without letting them into your life. You can still hold gratitude for the role they once played, even if their presence now brings chaos. Distance does not erase care. It creates clarity. It allows you to breathe again, to remember your center, and to reflect without being caught in their emotional storm. Choosing to love from a distance often comes after trying everything else. You may have tried to reason, to explain, to forgive, and to support. But when the patterns repeat and your inner peace begins to shrink, distance becomes necessary. It is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of maturity. It says, I love you enough to not fight with you, to not enable you, and to not let our connection become a source of damage for either of us. That kind of love is quiet but powerful. It does not seek revenge, nor does it broadcast its pain. It simply steps back, letting both people walk their separate paths with dignity. There is also a kind of growth that only happens in distance. Sometimes your absence becomes the mirror they never had when you were always there. It forces reflection. It removes the emotional cushion. And while it may not change them, it creates the conditions where change becomes possible. But even if it doesn't, that's not your burden to carry. Your role is not to sacrifice your joy for the potential of someone else's growth. Your role is to live in alignment with truth, with love, and with self-respect. Loving from a distance allows you to honor the past without becoming imprisoned by it. It lets you release the illusion that closeness equals connection. Some of the most painful choices are the most loving ones, and creating space can be a sacred decision. It is how you say, I care for you, but I also care for myself. This kind of love is not weak, it is wise. It understands that not every relationship is meant to continue the same way forever, and that releasing someone from your space is sometimes the deepest form of honoring who they truly are and who you are becoming. Solitude can be safer than poisoned company because not every presence in your life brings peace, growth, or truth. Sometimes, the people you keep close are not keeping you safe, they are keeping you stuck. They may not shout or strike, but their energy, words, and behaviors carry a quiet toxicity. This toxicity doesn't always show up as abuse. Sometimes it arrives in the form of constant criticism, masked as honesty, subtle guilt wrapped as concern, or emotional manipulation presented as love. Over time, it becomes harder to see clearly because the poison doesn't kill immediately. It weakens you slowly. And when you're surrounded by such energy, solitude isn't loneliness. It becomes a form of healing. In solitude, there are no masks to decode, no passive aggression to deflect, no emotional landmines to tiptoe around. There is stillness, and in that stillness, the truth begins to rise. You begin to hear your own voice again, unfiltered by other people's opinions, expectations, or judgments. You reconnect with your inner compass, and that clarity becomes the foundation of your peace. Many people fear being alone, but what they truly fear is meeting themselves without distraction. Yet that meeting is necessary, especially when your environment is clouded by people who pretend to care while secretly resenting your growth. Poisoned company is deceptive. It doesn't always feel bad at first. You may even feel needed or valued, but what is actually happening is a slow erosion of your self-trust. These individuals often depend on your confusion to keep their control. They want you close but not empowered. They want you present but not free. The more time you spend around them, the more you begin to question your own worth, your decisions, your dreams. That's not love. That's dependency disguised as connection. Solitude, on the other hand, allows you to reset your frequency. It removes the noise and gives you space to breathe. You don't have to explain your silence, defend your goals, or apologize for your light. You get to be fully yourself without fear of judgment or sabotage. In that space, you begin to remember your strength. You begin to see that the company you once feared losing was actually the very thing blocking your growth. Choosing solitude is not about rejecting others. It's about choosing yourself. It's a conscious decision to protect your energy, your mind, and your emotional stability. It's realizing that being alone is better than being with those who don't celebrate your presence, who drain your joy, or who manipulate your kindness. Growth often requires walking alone for a while, and in that walk, you develop resilience, self-awareness, and inner peace. You learn that your own presence is enough, and that real connection doesn't cost you your mental or emotional health. It's better to sit in silence than to dine with deception. It's better to grow in solitude than to shrink in company that poisons your soul under the disguise of closeness. Because in the end, the most valuable relationship you'll ever have is the one you build with yourself when no one else is around to distort it.